Today, we're diving into a high-stakes geopolitical story in the South China Sea. It's a tale of massive promises, intense military pressure, and a huge strategic gamble that, well, it backfired. Big time.
So let's rewind to 2016. The Philippines gets a new president, Rodrigo Duterte, and he flies to Beijing and says this. It was absolutely stunning. He basically announced a historic divorce from his country's oldest ally, the US, and a full pivot toward China.
And what was the centerpiece of this brand new friendship? This number, a staggering $24 billion pledge from Beijing. This wasn't just a friendly handshake. This was a promise of a golden age for the Philippines, all built with Chinese cash.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with Duterte's big gamble. Then we'll get into why those billions of dollars never really showed up. After that, we'll look at the moment things got heated. We're talking military-grade lasers, and how that led to a complete strategic flip that has changed the entire game in the region.
So when Duterte took office, he pushed this idea of an independent foreign policy. But what that really meant in practice was stepping away from Washington and stepping way closer to Beijing, hoping to trade old security guarantees for new economic opportunities.
And at first, it looked like the gamble was paying off. Money started to flow in. In fact, Duterte's terms saw more Chinese development finance than any before him, which seemed to fit perfectly with his huge build infrastructure plan. The golden age, it really seemed like it was happening.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, that promise of a golden age bankrolled by China, it pretty quickly ran into a much harsher reality. The grand vision just started to fall apart.
And this chart right here really tells the whole story. Look at that massive gap between the promise and what actually got delivered. Of that $24 billion that was pledged, less than $1 billion actually made it into key projects. The rest of it? Poof. It just kind of disappeared into thin air.
We're talking about major, nation-building projects here. Crucial railways, a massive bridge system, all of them just got stuck in limbo or canceled altogether. Beijing's excuses ranged from COVID to, contractual issues.
So what really happened? Well, it turns out this wasn't just bad luck. Almost half of the Chinese state-owned companies that were supposed to build all this stuff had already been flagged by the World Bank for, let's call it, questionable behavior. So really, the delays, the mismanagement, the corruption allegations, they were almost predictable.
Okay, so while all these economic dreams were falling apart on land, things were getting really tense out at sea. The soft power approach was fading fast, and China's military hard power was coming into sharp focus.
China started using what experts call gray zone tactics. This is really just a fancy way of saying they're being aggressive in a way that's designed to intimidate, but it's just below the level of an active war. Think of it like a strategy of constant bullying to get what you want without ever firing a shot.
And then we got the turning point. In January of 2023, the new Philippine president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., flies to Beijing to try and calm things down. Just 1 month later, a Chinese ship points a military-grade laser at a Philippine vessel, temporarily blinding the crew. This wasn't a gray zone tactic anymore. This was a bright green line that had been crossed. Manila just couldn't ignore it.
That laser incident, plus the growing worries about a potential conflict over Taiwan right next door, forced a total rethink in Manila. The new president basically had to admit, hey, we are on the front line of this thing whether we like it or not. So, with the whole China gamble now in ruins, the Philippines did a complete 180-degree turn. It pivoted right back to its oldest ally, the United States, and not only revived a key defense pact, but supercharged it.
Yeah, this agreement, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, it had basically been collecting dust under Duterte. But under Marcos, it was suddenly the biggest deal in town. It allows U.S. forces to rotate through and store equipment at Philippine bases.
And they didn't just revive it, they expanded it, adding 4 new locations. Now, one is in Palawan, looking out at the contested South China Sea. But look at the other 3. They're all in the far north of the country. And their location tells you everything. They're not pointed at internal problems, they are pointed directly at Taiwan.
One of those new bases, Naval Base Camilo Ocias, is less than 400 kilometers from Taiwan. Now, that might not sound super close, but in military terms, that's right on the doorstep of what could be the world's most dangerous flashpoint.
And what this does is it creates what military planners call the Bashi Channel Lock. Basically, by putting forces here, the US and the Philippines can control this critical choke point. In a conflict, they could effectively bottle up the Chinese Navy and keep it from getting out into the Pacific. It's a huge strategic play.
But,
You know, this renewed alliance isn't just about dots on a map. It's about bringing some very serious, high-end American military firepower right into the region.
During their biggest ever joint military exercises, the U.S. brought out its advanced Patriot air defense systems and fired them on Philippine soil for the first time ever. This was a massive signal that the military partnership was now on a whole different level.
So the cause and effect here is just crystal clear. Step 1. China's economic promises turn out to be empty. Step 2. China doubles down with aggression at sea. And Step 3. The Philippines responds by inviting a stronger, better-equipped U.S. military presence right onto its shores. All right, let's tally the final score. Let's really contrast the high hopes that started this whole thing with the tough, new reality on the ground today.
I mean, look at this. On one side, you have Duterte's dream from 2016. Billions of dollars, a golden age of investment, peace at sea. And on the other side, you have the reality under Marcos today. Broken promises, Chinese lasers, more U.S. bases, and the Philippines is now a frontline state in a global power struggle.
And that leaves us with one final big question. By trying so hard to pull the Philippines into its orbit, using empty promises and intimidation, did Beijing actually push them so far in the other direction that they created the very thing they feared most, a strategic, unsinkable aircraft carrier for American power right on their southern flank?